تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون.
We have been, mashallah, going through the seerah of the Salaf. For those of you who just joined us, the seerah of the Salaf, the biography of the pious predecessors. من التابعين والتابع تابعين والعلماء العظام والمحدثون والشعراء. People that have paved the way for us to be here today to uphold this blessed deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And tonight we have an honorable mention. So much so that I cannot finish it in one part, just so you know. This one will be to be continued inshallah for next week. وَهُوَ مَنْ هُوَ. And who is this man? First of all, you have to give credit where credit is due. You've seen, mashallah, our brothers and our sisters in Gaza, in Palestine, the resilience that these men and women and children have that, subhanallah, has astonished the world. Kullu, everyone who has dharrat yani qalb, anyone who has just a beating heart will realize that these men, these women, these children, subhanallah, subhana man khalaq, tabarakallahu ahsanul khaliqeen. These people are standing firm with iman, with yaqeen, with strength, with honor, despite all of what is going against them. So Allah yansurhum nasran aziza. Ameen. This man نشأ وولد في غزة في فلسطين. This man was born and brought up as a young child in Gaza, Palestine. This man, his mention is to overwhelm the entire world. Whether you go to Iraq, he is known. Palestine, he is known. Egypt, he is known. Syria, he is known. Mecca, he is known. Medina, he is known. This man paved the way for fiqh, for understanding of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This man was a man of resilience, a man who implemented every single thing he learned from the Quran and the Sunnah. وهو الإمام الأصولي. الإمام الأصولي. When you say this, means he is the Imam who brought about usul al-fiqh. Usul means the root, the asl. Al-fiqh is jurisprudence, meaning the understanding or the comprehension of deen. How do we practice our deen? How do we implement the laws of Allah? What laws apply to me in this circumstance? This is the man who is responsible for usul al-fiqh. وهو محدث, transmitter of the hadith. وهو الفقيه الشاعر. يعني we can go on. وهو من هو محمد ابن إدريس الشافعي أبي عبد الله. His lineage was a noble lineage, and you all know Imam Al Shafi3y from the famous madhahib. We went through the seerah al-atira of Imam Abu Hanifa, Nu'man rahmatullahi alayhi rahmatan wasi'ah. And then we went, last week we addressed Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi. And now we are looking and delving into Imam Al Shafi3y. Abi Abdullah, his lineage is a noble lineage. And his great-grandfathers were Sahaba radwanullahi alayhim ajma'een. And his lineage actually connects with Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam and Ibn Abdul Muttalib. فنسبه شريف, and his great-grandfathers were Sahaba, as I mentioned. And they embraced Islam and stood next to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. When the ulama described this man, they said that he had one thing that was fundamentally different about him. Pay attention to this. He combined two forms of knowledge in his time. He combined the knowledge of athar, which is hadith, and the knowledge of al-qiyas, or yani the knowledge of understanding or comprehension of the deen through the hadith. He embodied both aspects. Before, when we mentioned Imam Abu Hanifa rahmatullahi alayh, we said that he was an expert in al-qiyas, ilm al-kalam. Huh? Imam Malik rahmatullah alayhi was an expert in al-athar and hadith, muwatta. Imam Al Shafi3y combined both of these sciences, and he excelled and exceeded in both. لذلك he became an astonishing faqih with these two critical aspects of comprehension. And just, it's a very important note to mention. You've seen all the videos and the images of the torment and the agony and the destruction in Gaza. Do you know how many children will be orphaned through this war? This Allah يأتينا الرزق لكي نكفلهم. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestow us the wealth and the ability to take care of these orphans. This man, subhanallah, was an orphan himself. His father died at a very young age. And his mother, he reported that his mother, she used to do everything and anything. She would clean people's houses and cook for them and take care of people just so she can earn some money. But not so that she can feed him whatever she wants or she can buy him the PS5 or the new iPhone. No. كانت تبذل كل مالها. She used to give everything that she got so she can teach this young boy to become a alim. And subhanallah, how her hard efforts paid off. Because till this day he is mentioned, and till this day his fiqh is studied. And he was born, as I mentioned, in Gaza, Palestine, 150 years after the hijrah of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Some of the ulama even said that he was born in the same year that Abi Hanifa rahmatullah alayhi passed away. Allah Azza wa Jal has an amazing sunnah that he replaces this deen with men that will carry the banner. If one passes, Allah Azza wa Jal will bring about new men to carry and cherish the ilm of Al-Quran and Sunnah. And he grew up in Gaza, but his mother moved to Mecca in order for her son, her orphan son, to obtain the ilm of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. And when he was raised in Mecca, he went to Medina. From Medina, he went to Yemen. From Yemen, he went to Iraq, and from Iraq, he went to Egypt. This man traversed the entire world, the entire Muslim world. For what, do you think? Was he on a business venture? What was he doing? His entire life was dedicated to obtaining knowledge. And we'll start where he was a young man, at the age of 7 years old. Who's 7 here? Raise your hand. Do you have any 7-year-olds? How old are you? Yeah. 10, mashallah. At the age of 7, he memorized the Quran, the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the age of 7, he already completed. Done. And he delved into the ilm of al-ansab. So the Arabs were profoundly known for their knowledge of ansab, the lineage. So if you ever met a person of knowledge in this, if you tell him your last name, he can pull out your nasab. Everything was rooted for them. So he delved into this ilm, and from that he went into the ilm of al-lugha, al-nahw, al-sarf. And from that he fell in love with poetry, shi'r. And it's notable to mention that out of all the ulama of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah, هذا المميز في شعره. This is the man that was profoundly accepted because his poetry is so deep. And in part 2, inshallah, I'm going to take a few stanzas from his poems and give you a tidbit of how he used to think. And subhanAllah, you can actually obtain a character sketch of a person based on how they write. Because a writer writes their thoughts. Sometimes you can't speak or say or illustrate what you want, but you can write it. You can write your thoughts. And that's how you can get a good glimpse as to who this person really is. And Imam Al Shafi3y rahmatullah alayh was an amazing, remarkable poet. His poetry is still studied till this day. So when he delved into that, he excelled. He memorized so much. He was an encyclopedia. But along his youth, when he was about 12 years old, an incident happened to him. He was riding with a caravan and he was reciting poetry. And one of the older men, wiser men behind him, struck him with the whip. And he said to him, he says, "You are wasting what Allah has given you of this great memory, this great ability, this linguistics, by just memorizing this. أَيْنَ لَكَ فِي الْفِقْهِ What do you have in fiqh of the deen of Allah? What do you have in the understanding of the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala?" And that led him, he said in his book, he mentions, he says, that was a point in my life where like the light bulbs came on. So immediately he started to dive into the fiqh. And he went and studied under Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayhi in Medina. And if I told you this, and this is absolutely factual, he memorized Muwatta Malik. He memorized the entire thing. Memorized it. Bis-sanad. His physical characteristics. His companions, they described him, they said, he was very tall. He was lanky. He wasn't a very thick man. He was very slender. And he had a very light beard. His beard wasn't very thick. SubhanAllah. Even though his nasab, his lineage goes back to Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam ibn Abi Talib, like al-Arab, he didn't have a very thick beard. And he used to dye it with a little bit of henna, a little bit of red. This is a sunnah, yani, subhanAllah. And I mentioned to you that he was raised an orphan, but you have to understand, an orphan is not only just lacking the fatherly example in their life, but they're also lacking man. Many orphans around the world, they're lacking either a father or a mother, but they're lacking wealth. And he grew up very poor. Very, very poor. He says, آنست بالفقر. Listen to how he speaks. قال آنست بالفقر حتى صرت لا أستوحش منه. He said, I grew up with poverty, in a state of poverty, to the point where I desire it. It makes him comfortable. Like when you reminisce when you were growing up, some event in your life, or a food that you used to always eat as a child. Imam Al Shafi3y, he reminisces about the days of poverty, where they had nothing to eat, where they had no shoes to wear. This is his childhood. This is how he grew up, rahmatullahi alayhi. فقال آنست بالفقر حتى صرت لا أستوحش منه. And his mother, as I mentioned, she used to do everything in her ability to provide for this young man to grow to be a scholar that he became, rahmatullahi alayhi wa alayha. And we have a point here for the mothers in our community. Yani mashallah alaykum. May Allah Azza wa Jalla reward you. There is nothing that the men can do to reward you. If you have a mother, I want you tonight to go and kiss her head or her hands. And if you have a wife, the same thing. If you have a sister, the same thing. The root word of ummah is comes from mother, because she is the vessel that carries and nourishes and cares for you. We all came from a mother, from a woman. And there's a bayt fi shi'r. When I heard this bayt, I memorized it immediately because I fell in love with it. The poet, he says, ولي حنون أرضعتني سقاني حبها فوق احتياجي ففاض عليكم ما فاض مني. He says, and I have a dear blessed mother. She breastfed me, cared for me. And what she fed me and how she nourished me, and cared for me, that is all the blessing that she gave me. She overwhelmed me with blessing, and that is why I am blessed, and this is the blessing you see in front of you. Yani he attributed all the blessing of the care and the nurture and the kindness and the lutf and the adab to his mother. Because who was by your side when you got that fever, huh? When your fever hit 41, your dad was passed out. He didn't even look at you, huh? when you got chicken pox or you got this or that, who came and sat by your bedside, huh? And made sure that you had everything, water, you were not too hot, not too cold. She didn't sleep. She didn't sleep. She can't sleep. She can't eat. It was your mother. It was your mother. And for those whose mothers have passed away, may Allah Azza wa Jalla have mercy on them. You should tell those of us who have our mothers still to cherish them, to care for them. Because by Allah, if I asked you and your mother passed away, what would it be? What would you choose? Just to bring your mother back so you can kiss her one last time? You would give everything for that. You would give everything for that. And here we are, alhamdulillah, some of us have that opportunity. So I give this to you as an amana. Your wife, your mother, your sister, any woman in your life, I want you tonight, inshallah, to go and kiss her on the head and say, Barakallahu feeki. Because these are the women that we need to cherish. Islam placed women at the highest level. The highest level. The feminists are running after equality and they want women's rights and they want to beat on men and they want to compete with men. And no. Islam has already done it for you, Habibti. Islam has already placed you on the highest pedestal. The highest pedestal. The highest rights. The highest honor. Islam. Islam. And we as Muslims, as Muslim men, we need to carry that honor. We need to carry that honor. So, as I mentioned, his mother, rahmatullahi alayha, she gave everything in her ability to raise him as a alim. And at a young age, when he was taking classes, sometimes they didn't have enough money to pay the alim. And by the way, ilm costs money. Back then it was whatever you can give. But sometimes she had nothing. She had nothing. And his ulama, his scholars, they knew this. So what did they do? They said, Ya Sheikh. They called him Sheikh. They said, it's okay, you don't have to pay, but you can take over the class in order to pay for it. So the alim would step aside, and Imam Al Shafi3y, rahmatullahi alayhi, Abi Abdullah, would carry the class to pay for his services. This happened on several occasions. And rahmatullahi alayhi, they were so poor, he couldn't afford scribe, paper. What did he write on? What did Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu write on? Do you guys remember? We mentioned this. What did he write on? Abu Hurairah used to write on his ni'al, on his leather shoes, Imam Al Shafi3y used to write on the bones of cattle. Bones of cattle. فَكَانَ يَلُمُّ الْعِظَامِ. He used to gather the bones that people threw out after butchering, and he would write on them. He would write his durus on them. When he was at the age of 23, he moved to Medina to learn from Imam Malik himself, Al-Imam Al-Jalil, Al-Muhaddith. And when Imam Malik, when he sat in his class, he asked him to read from Al-Muwatta. Remember, Al-Muwatta is a compilation of ahadith. They're not all authentic, but it's a major compilation of ahadith, the first of its kind. When he began to read, A'jabah, Imam Malik was impressed, not only by his linguistic ability, he would not make an error, but also if he said to him id, and he already passed the page, he says repeat that one hadith, he noticed that Imam Shafi'i would not flip back. He already memorized it. So, and he mentions rahmatullahi alayh that he memorized Al-Muwatta and he recited it to Imam Malik rahmatullahi alayh before he passed. And from his farasa, Imam Malik, when he looked at Shafi'i, he said to him very wise words. He said he says, Allah Azza wa Jal has given you a sha'n, has given you an honor. Or in another narration, he says, Ataka bi nur, he has given you a light. He says, so stay away from the sins. Stay away from the sins. If Allah Azza wa Jal has favored someone and given them the honor to the ability to absorb knowledge and to understand it and to deliver it, the destructive aspect comes when you start to sin. Because an-nafs ammara bis-su', your soul will carry you away from that. You have to be at a constant struggle with your nafs to fight off and to ward off the sin. And Allah Azza wa Jal in the Quran, He says, وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَلِيُعَلِّمْكُمُ اللَّهِ. Allah Azza wa Jal, He says, fear Allah, put your hope in Allah, be mindful of Allah, Allah will teach you. So, al-ilmu nur, wa nurullah la yuhda li'asi. Knowledge is a light, and Allah Azza wa Jal will not grant you this light if you are in darkness. If you are in darkness. As soon as you start going to the sins, you start going and delving into those websites, into the he said, she said, into this and that. All the Quran that you memorized is just going to slip under you. All the ilm that you obtained is going to slip under you. Your salah, you're going to notice, you're going to be skipping your salahs. You're going to be late on your salahs. This is the sunnah of Allah Azza wa Jal. Why would He keep you strong in your deen if you're on the side, you're trying to do a hustle of sin? You're not going to get it. There is one path and it is straight. As soon as you start to bob and weave, you're going to trip. You're going to trip until you come back. And I'm not going to get into the details, but you know exactly what I'm saying. All it takes is that nadra, that look, that feed, and then you start slipping. And it's a downward slope. May Allah Azza wa Jal guide us all. And after learning from Imam Malik, he went to Yemen. And he became a wali in Yemen. كان ولي اليمن, a qadi, a judge. And he presided over the Muslims in all of Yemen. To the point where everyone heard about him. And everyone was astonished by how he deliberates, his ahkam, his fiqh. And he became very popular with his fatawa. And then he moved to Iraq, Baghdad. And this is where he met with the student of Abi Hanifa rahmatullahi alayh, Muhammad ibn Hassan.